time for more of the Rod Pedersen Show.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Wednesday morning, April the 1st. We've shelved the April Fool's jokes, although people are still talking about some of our best ones from years gone by. I'm a real prankster, or at least I used to be. And I'm not saying I'm not going to ever do another April Fool's joke again, but it's taking the year off, if you will. Wanted to mention, Jared Dumber writes in, our hockey analyst, says, "Morning, fellas. Morning, J-Red. Hope you're staying safe." Dean Gutile, CBC legend, writes in, and it just slipped off the screen. Could you put the comment up, Clark, please, from Dean Gutile? You guys will remember him from CBC. And while he brings that up, there it is. I think the best case scenario is a half a season. This is for the CFL. At worst, no season. Hate to be a downer, but a real possibility. 30,000 people together in Mosaic Stadium and having all those American CFL players up here seems a long way off. It may, but Dean, if you were watching the start, this is changing daily. You have to admit that that's the case. It is. Although it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Not really better. But I'm still waiting for the day that corporate America and big business stands up and says, enough's enough. We know the risks. We're going to take our chances and go back. John Heaps, writing in from Scottsdale, Arizona, watching. He says, Tom Higgins in it for the love of the game. Front to top, being an assistant coach in the CIS, just like John Paddock. Been at the top, now here helping kids for the love of the sport. Now, don't mistake the fact John Paddock's very well paid. What's your definition of going from top to bottom?
Yeah.
Because he's doing pretty well.
He's doing really
financially.
Well. Yeah.
I want to get to the concept of a shortened CFL season, but I will. I should be sitting at home writing a book rather than sitting at home reading books, but whatever. I got lots of time to do that. But I'm talking about my memoirs as a sportscaster, not just voice of the Riders, because as you've learned, I got a hell of a lot of stories that have nothing to do with the football that are very entertaining. But February 2005, the relationship between Henry Burris and the Rough Riders was acrimonious. And it was specifically Henry Burris and Roy Shivers. And for whatever reason, because I never got Roy's side, but Henry and I were very close. We remain very close to this day. Henry was telling me everything that was going on from the Riders side. And then, as I just said to Tom Higgins, Henry was calling me going, well, this is what Calgary's offering. And I'm not going to really get into it, but it was literally the keys to the castle, the money, vehicles, jobs for him and the whole thing. And I remember getting called in because Henry hadn't really decided yet where he was going. I get called into a meeting and told to get off Henry's side. As a matter of fact, I believe the direct quote from Roy Shivers was, if you want to be an investigative reporter, you can't work for me. Well, if you know me, I said, I don't work for you. The meeting went predictably from there, you could imagine. And then I have a separate meeting with the radio station, and I go, well, you kind of do work for Roy and the Riders. I said, I'm sorry, I don't see his name on my paycheck anywhere. I thought you were paying me. Well, you kind of got to do what the Riders tell you to do. Oh, it would have been nice if you told me that when I started this job 6 years ago. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to present both sides. But it just kind of gave you the feeling of how things work. And it's not a Rider thing, per se. It's a sports thing, you know?
Yep.
And it just honestly it was great when I started. That's the way it was about a third of the way through, and it just got progressively more and more like that.
Yeah.
Fair?
Fair.
So the thing with Henry, and one thing I've learned now in this recovery coaching business that I do, the recovery world and the sports world aren't a whole lot different. And when people are calling you to ask what you think, they generally know already.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for you to give them the go-ahead. And in the case of Henry, what do you think? This is the side. I'm like, well, I think it's done, Hank, from what I can tell. You and Roy aren't speaking, and Calgary's giving you literally the keys to the fortress.
Yeah.
And it's not like what I said convinced Henry to do it, but I think it made him feel better. And then, about 1 year ago to the day, we were doing a dinner in Sedley together, Henry Burris, Ricky Foley, and me. And Henry told the story of what caused him and Roy to have the falling out. And I'm like, you waited 15 years, Hank. Nobody cares anymore. Which is what makes me think I should be getting on the book now.
Right. You got to get on it.
Because Henry was going to tell it in his book, which he hasn't written yet either. And after a while, nobody cares.
Yeah.
So, to the CFL thing, just checking in with some viewers here. John O'Flynn says, love from the city of North Vancouver. Thank you, John. Love back to you. How's that? From the prairies. BK Graham in Saskatoon says, morning all. Great way to hunker down. The Rod Pedersen Show. Thank you, BK in Saskatoon. You're seeing here, you got Dean from CBC saying, but I think best case scenario, half a season. Probably no season. You got Tom Higgins saying, worst case scenario, half a season.
Yeah.
Mark Cuban on ESPN this morning, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, saying, hey, I got no idea. I'm just deferring to the medical people, which has kind of led me to say, at what point do they stop listening to the medical people? But I digress. The point is, as of today, April 1st, nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
So let's just say it's a 9-game sprint to the finish line in the CFL. Who does that favor? Now, when I said it, I can relate it to the NFL. Sean Payton talked about this the other day, the coach of the Saints. He said, if you got a veteran coaching staff that's been in place for years, doesn't bother us. If the players have to go immediately to training camp in the NFL, skipping OTAs and meetings aside from that, he goes, what it'll affect is the teams with new coaching staffs. So let's relate that to the CFL. If it's a sprint to the finish line, you got 1 week of a training camp, 10 days, whatever, shortened, no preseason. How would you like to be Paul Laplease? Look at all the teams that have new coaches.
I know.
Half the league.
There's a credible amount of turnover in the CFL. And that's interesting. Like I put my comment in the other day. It favors Winnipeg. They just won a championship, brought back a lot of their pieces. They've got a quarterback who's got health concerns in, Zach Collaros. So the more games Zach plays, the bigger risk he gets hurt, right? I mean, that's just the math. So a shortened season absolutely favors him. You've got Andrew Harris, one of the top backs in the Canadian Football League, in the history of the Canadian Football League, but he's aging. Shortened season favors him, less wear and tear on the legs. Right? So you start to see that. Now, you mentioned the coaching thing. I wonder about that offense without Paul Laplease. There's going to be some changes there. But I've always said, I think it favors the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and it gives them a chance to we just won. Let's go do that playoff race again and win it again. Very easy. Don't got to go through the grind of an 18-game season or whatever it is and the playoffs and everything else and all the injuries and the ups and downs. Let's just reload and keep going and stay on top. I think it favors Winnipeg.
Pause for a second. Jason Walls watching in Winnipeg. Jason, have you called TSN 1290 yet today at the switchboard and told them you want the Rod Pedersen Show on their station? Please do that. Flood the switchboard. That'll work. That'll really get them loving us.
Yeah.
Jason in Winnipeg says, if there's no season, then I'd miss my first Labor Day Classic since 1993. See, that's why I don't even like mentioning the negative side, because you don't know. You got a choice. You can be positive, you can be negative. And certain people just wallow in being negative. See, I told you I was right. It feels good to be positive and be right too.
Yeah.
That feels really good.
It does. And here's the thing too. You wouldn't miss your first Labor Day Classic. You wouldn't miss it because there wouldn't be one. I get it. Your Labor Day would be without.
What would we do? What would they do?
Exactly.
Even on a 9-game season, they're saying would kick off Labor Day. Oh man, that would just be so wild. Greg Buchanan writes in. He says, I'm watching from the border city. Love the show. That, by the way, is Lloydminster. Can you put the comment up from Colin in Ottawa, please, Clark, regarding Peter King and Schefter? Breaking news from Brady in Saskatoon. He says Jadeveon Clowney has signed a 3-year, $70 million contract with the Tennessee Titans via Ian Rappaport.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, that's what
breaking news there.
That's what they were saving the money for, right? Cameron Wake out, Delaney Walker gone, Jarrell Casey traded, doing that to get Clowney. They want, they haven't had an edge rusher in a while. Clowney or Jarrell Casey's been more in the middle, so that's big.
his stopover in Seattle was brief. For Jadeveon Clowney.
Yep.
And as we say every day around this time, the National Football League has chosen not to participate in the pandemic. Are you still trying to find the comment? I got it. You found it? This is from Colin in Ottawa regarding that situation with Roy Shivers and the Riders back in the day, February 2005. Clark's about to put it up on the screen. While he does that, the teams then, a 9-game season in the CFL would favor the teams with veteran coaching staffs. And that would be your Calgary Stampeders, your Saskatchewan Roughriders, your Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Hamilton Tiger Cats. And I guess the Alouettes, although Kahari Jones seems new there. I mean, all those guys are new. Dickinson's going into year 2.
Yeah.
Steinauer's going into year 2. Kahari Jones going into year 2. Boy, it doesn't say much for the security of a coaching job, head coaching job in the Canadian Football League, does it?
You know, you go 3 years ago and you look at it and it's like, who's left besides Dave Dickinson and O'Shea? Anybody? I don't think so.
The comment, Clark has put it up on my monitor here just before we run for hour 1. He says, yeah, Colin in Ottawa says this. I realized that Adam Schefter and Peter King were NFL shills when they covered up for Roger Goodell when he lied about the NFL not seeing the Ray Rice tape before he handed down the light punishment of a 2-game suspension to the Baltimore running back. That's Colin's comment, not mine. I don't think Adam Schefter is a total shill for the National Football League because he broke the story of Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers did not like that.
Oh, no.
And I'm not sure the NFL liked it either. Adam Schefter said that he got that scoop from an iconic NFL Hall of Famer. And the guy was right. We don't know who it was, but it didn't come from the Bucs. It didn't come from the NFL. But as far as the way the media has become, I'm just not that interested in roles like I'd had in the past where you are told what to say on a daily basis. Just not interested. It's not fun anymore. It is for a lot of guys. For me, it's not. This is far more fun. And I think through 205 shows, people are realizing that.
Yeah.
We're not sitting here lying. We're not sitting here dropping F-bombs. We're not sitting here making anybody look bad. But I'm also not sitting here just repeating what I'm being told to say. Because you can get anybody to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not me. Next hour, Rob Vanstone. Next hour, Anthony Calvillo. And more of a very fun discussion. So hang on. We'll be right back. It's the Rod Pedersen Show, Facebook Live. Coming this spring to Game Plus TV Network and listen live at rodpedersen.com.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of the Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.